doesn't go together the way it does, because that's what everybody wears. He couldn't figure out, I don't know what he thought, and what kind of, I don't know how they chose their habits, actually. I don't think, because they try not to be. Have you ever seen one of those books with all the different? Yeah, a lot of them were very similar.
Yeah.
But some of them were really out.
Some of the veils were crazy.
Yes, they were.
I don't know how you could work in that.
And they didn't even look good.
No. Not flattering.
The daughters of St. Vincent de Paul, they were hospital sisters, and they had those
with the thing around.
They wouldn't soup, the line, something along that line, and they had the hospital in Dallas at the time, and it looked nice, but I don't think, I don't know. I didn't think I wanted to run around looking like that.
So how did you choose? You just flipped through the book? You just
I did. I flipped through the book. First of all, I didn't want to teach.
Yeah.
So when the book has a little blurb, about like that, about what they did, and I kept going through that book. And then I found it. It should be floating around here someplace.
Yeah.
I found it later on here, and I looked at some of them, but some of them I thought, wouldn't be caught dead in that one. I don't care what kind of work they're doing, And then I was eliminating a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then and actually the ones from here and this one were almost, even their habits looked, pretty similar. And I kept looking at it, and then I went through between that one and this one, For a while I thought of going to Canada, joining a community that had a French background.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
That would have.
Yeah, and I almost did, and actually we had one of our sisters transfer to a community in Canada
Sister
later
Matildas.
on, years
Sister
later.
Matildas, yeah.
And I thought, but she was German.
Huh.
So, she went.
She went to Canada.
She went to Canada, and she stayed there. I mean, but it sounded strange to me, because when she got ill, apparently they didn't have accommodations, for the sister, and she ended up. I don't know if that community paid, for the care of her in this other community, or what kind of arrangements they had, but she ended up, and I thought, I hope she learned French while she was, over there, because
she ended up just at a nursing home.
Kind of like a nursing home.
Yikes.
And I lost track of her. There were a couple that transferred, and we kept in touch. One of them was my classmate, and I can't remember where she went now, but she died fairly soon after, she transferred. And it's kind of interesting.
So you were choosing between here and Canada and Springfield.
Yeah.
And then what made your final? What made you choose Peoria?
I don't know, because I didn't even know where Peoria was.
You didn't know where Peoria was.
No. I mean, after I read it, it's in Illinois, but I had no concept of. I don't know. I just kept looking at it, and I think there were two things that attracted me. I thought I wanted to work in healthcare. Had no clue, because I had no exposure to that. And then at the time, some of them had like an orphanage. We did too. And I thought, well, because I hadn't finished high school. My mom got ill in the middle of my school, and I dropped out in my sophomore year because there was nobody else to stay with her. And then after she died, my brother says, well, go back to school, don't worry. I said, nah, Joseph, I think it's time I go to work.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, no, you finish high school and then see what else you want to do, because he wasn't married. And he was a merchant seaman, just out most of the time. No, I thought, no, it's about time for me to, be on my own. So, it worked out okay. But I just took a book and I flipped through, and first thing was habit. If it was way out, no, don't even check what they do, just keep on going, But then I ran into this where there were several communities, like I mentioned, the Springfield Franciscans and this one, and it was similar work as well. But I think we had that orphanage, and I thought, well, since I don't have the background to work in nursing, I thought I may end up doing domestic work or something like that. And if that was true, I'd like to work with children.
Yeah.
And so that was the last thing, But then when my brother looks at it and he says, what kind of outfit is that? Brown with black veil, and it doesn't go together. Joseph, don't get me. Don't get me up here. Don't get me stirred up about my fashion. Because I used to work for Nardis of Dallas. It's so fun. And I work with designers and salesman and stuff like that. It was kind of fun because you knew almost over a year ahead of time of what was coming up.
So you were a trendsetter.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And we had, because we had to get all of that done. And then the salesman went out, so we were almost a whole year ahead of the fashions that were coming up, and the fabrics and the patterns and all that kind. I kind of like that. Yeah. But
so, how did you get to Peoria? Did you take a train? How'd you actually get here?
Oh well, when I got serious about. I thought, I was having fun, taking nice vacations and doing stuff, going to plays and doing all kinds of stuff like that.
Dances.
Yeah. Yeah, that one for sure. And then I thought, I gotta get serious here. Yeah. And I really didn't have any desire to get married, or have children like some women do.
Yeah, they do.
They do, That's like number one on their agenda. And I didn't. I could go. I had lots of nieces and nephews.
Plenty, yeah.
I did a lot of stuff for them, and when they get in trouble with my brother, they'd come, go get in Margie. Tell him, that she's going here or there, and so it's okay, And so I was a chaperone. Well, they like that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And stuff like that, and then vacations and so forth. But I don't know. Then all of a sudden I thought, this is fun. This is nice, but I think I better do something else that's worthwhile, And so I thought, well, and I started looking through some of those books, because they used to have them. I don't know if they still do. Probably now everything's through the TV or stuff like that,
computer.
that they do. But and it was, so I kept flipping through, and first of all, look at the habits. If they were too outrageous, eliminate them, because some of them really were weird looking. And then this was one of the plainer ones, that I found, and there were several that were very close. Like I said, the ones in Springfield, and they were doing similar work. So I don't know why I finally zeroed in on this one, because they were very similar, both in habit and in that. And
what did you think when you first visited Peoria?
When I didn't visit.
Oh, you didn't visit? You just came and you entered?
Yeah. It had worked. I just gave them the 2 weeks notice, and then they didn't want to. You're doing what? When? Because I had worked there for a number of years, about 8 years, I think.
What was your plan if you didn't like it here? You didn't have a plan.
Well,
you just knew.
If I really didn't like it, well, I had, I had money in the bank that I didn't bring, because at that time we had to bring a dowry.
Oh.
When we came, $200.
Really?
Yeah, and they kept it. If you didn't stay, you got it back. Gave you something to, I guess. But I have kept my own. At home. I had checking account, banking account, and so I felt pretty. But why Peoria? I have no clue.
You're just called. You're just called.
I must have been.
God just called you.
Yeah, because we knew nobody over here. I'd never heard of it. The only thing was the habit wasn't too bad, and the work, they had. I didn't want to teach, but they had hospitals, and then they had one orphanage. I thought, if I know I can take care of kids. I had enough experience with my nieces and nephews, and they get too rowdy, I put them outside and close the door. No, but that was kind of like, the thinking I had, because I thought, I sure didn't think that they would send me to school to prepare me for and my brother, like I said, was after me. He says, well, I said, well, it's too much going to school at night, working time. He says, well, I'll make sure, because he was supporting my mom and I, and before, he says, he was married and he was out at sea most of the time, just blowing his money away, drunken sailors coming into port. And he said, it won't be a problem for me. And I thought, no, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to do it on my own. Yeah, So, and it worked out pretty well. Yeah. Because I really didn't know what I was going to do when I came here, and I gave them my background and so forth. But I always thought, well, they've got that one orphanage. Yeah. And maybe domestic work, that didn't sit too well. But I thought, I could do it if I needed to. No, farm work. I had no clue about farm work. When I came in, we were out there. The garden, we had a garden at the novitiate. And I had no clue. But one of my classmates, she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm supposed to be weeding this. I didn't know plants from weeds, She said, get away. Go over there. Do something else. What you want me to do? I don't know. Just go away. And she was, I don't know that she was a farmer, but she had a background with that. She knew weeds from plants. And so she took over, and I know she had me doing stupid things so that novice mistress didn't catch on to that. I wasn't doing anything. Just acting like I was doing something. And when my brother came, oh, he laughed so hard when I told him while I was still in the novitiate. Hey, sister, what are you doing? I said, I'm working in the grounds. He looked at me. He says, you don't know anything about that. I said, well, I know about that.
It doesn't matter.
So he went downtown crazy. Got me some gloves, got me some, I don't know what, all kinds of stuff for gardening. I'm thinking, Joseph, it's all fake. She's doing it. I'm just here for the show. No, I didn't tell him that. But I laughed so hard, He's so proud of himself.
Taking care of you.
And Joselinda was my classmate, and she comes in, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm supposed to be doing this or that. Go away. Go over there, pick out something or other.
Pick up sticks.
And she'd get in there and she'd be doing all her stuff, and I didn't get in trouble, so I did okay. But I kind of think maybe they figured, but they said, oh, well. And they put me in the kitchen. I had the sister in the kitchen took one look at me, and she didn't know what to do with me either. She said, I even hate to have you washing dishes because you're so tiny, and we've got so many dishes and pots and pans, stuff. So I said, well, I don't know, I'll do whatever. So they had me doing crazy things. And one of them, finally, I hit on something. They had some, I know you can get all this stuff, and then put in the waste and stuff, and put it in newspapers, and take it down there, to where to pick up. Well, it was fine, except newspapers and me.
You're going to read them?
I'm on the floor wrapping stuff that I'm supposed to be wrapping up. What is it? See, we didn't have the newspaper, we didn't have the TVs, and we didn't have, 1 hour of recreation was on. So
you're reading the newspaper.
I'm looking, and it took me the whole time, everybody's cleaning, doing and I'm there, Then they said, well, yeah, she's got to learn a little bit about well, I went in there, and the one sister looked at me, the German sister, pretty good size. She looked at me, she goes, so they said, okay, go help this other sister over there. So they had me put in, I don't even know, because I know nothing about cooking, but they had something that they had little sticks like this, and you put white stuff inside there, like a salad or I don't know what they had, because a lot of the food I didn't taste either. But they had me doing stuff like that, and I can do that. But they didn't want me doing dishes, because they thought I was probably going to get my sleeves.
Sure.
They sent me, when I went to after I was professing, I was in the, floating around in Peoria. I was going to school, but when we came, we were supposed to help. I thought, oh, well. So I couldn't, they were afraid I was going to get my sleeves into everything. They said, no, you're not going to work here. Why don't you go over there and put the silver? Okay, yeah, I can put fork from knife. I can do that. I had to keep up because, the lines were going two rows. I don't know why. I don't think I kind of flunked that too, but I'm not sure why. Well, go make bread. Toast, the toast. Okay, I can do that. We had one of those little machines, that you loaded it up, and they were saying, okay, white bread, and this is the kind of bread, and that kind of bread. We had like 3 different kinds. So and they gave me buckets, and I couldn't keep up with them because they were going through too fast through the line. So they were constantly pulling my buckets away because they needed it. So I don't even look up. I'm just putting bread here and there and this way and that. Well, they got through with the line where they forgot to tell me.
Are you still making toast?
Finally, somebody came over and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got to keep up." I had buckets and buckets. I don't know what they did with the toast, but I lost that job. I'm surprised they kept me. They probably thought she doesn't know. Then they had me pouring coffee and water. Well, they decided the coffee pots were too big for me. I tell you, I could write a book. So I don't know what I ended up doing. Cleaning tables, I think. Because I was supposed to I had tea and water, and I was supposed to go up and down we had 8 tables in the dining room with, I think, 8, no, it had to be more than that, sisters sitting at each table. Mm-hmm. And nobody talked because they did reading while we were eating. So I'm supposed to walk up and down, the aisles. And I had tea, and I had either water and coffee or tea and something else. I had 2 things. And so and the way they put their cups indicated what they wanted, Mm-hmm. So I was going there and pouring it. And then somebody would pull my veil, and I'm thinking, now what? Somebody wouldn't. Either I put the wrong thing in the wrong cup.
Oh no!
I tell you, I'm surprised they kept me. They thought, well, maybe she can. Then we had one sister. She was a saint. When nobody else knew what to do with somebody, give it to her, in a big refectory, big dining room. That's why we call it the refectory. So she was real kind. And I said, she said, okay. And she did. I did pretty good there. But then we had to clean the floors, and they had those
the waxers
and that, she said, oh yeah, I can do that. Except I went in and she's dragging me every which way, because you have to know how to
it's heavy and you're light.
and there's tricks to everything, and they didn't tell me the tricks, so it's dragging me here and there. I didn't know that's not going to work either. And she said, I know, you can do the steps. Okay. So that you do, hands and knees,
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So, okay, I can do that. After a while, they weren't so sure when I said, oh, I can do that. But that sister was a saint. But
what sister was it?
Let's see, what was she? Oh, gosh, I can see her, but now I can't think of her name. But she figured I couldn't do too much harm doing the steps, because I had to have just some water and we didn't use fancy stuff. We used old rags, that they were using to clean the steps and do that. So anyway,
it's a good thing you ended up in medical records.
Oh gosh, yeah, I